Do you swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is true and correct to the best of your knowledge, information, and belief, so help you God?
I do.
How many have you indicted?
Excuse me. I'm going to answer the question.
Answer my question.
No, I'm going to answer the question the way I want to answer the question.
No,
Your
you're going to answer
theatrics
the
are
question
ridiculous.
the way I asked it. The survivors of these heinous crimes deserve better from this Department of Justice. In particular, it is shocking that the department did not redact the names of Epstein's victims, but it did redact the names of their abusers.
It is about you taking responsibility for your Department of Justice and the harm that it has done to the survivors who are standing right behind you and are waiting for you to turn to them and apologize.
Have you apologized to President Trump, all of you who participated in those impeachment hearings against Donald Trump? You all should be apologizing.
Who's responsible? Are you able to track who in your organization made this massive failure and released the victims' names? Literally the worst thing you could do to the survivors, you did.
I'm a career prosecutor.
So picture this. In a federal courtroom in New Jersey, something pretty shocking just happened. A federal judge caught Pam Bondi's Department of Justice outright lying. This wasn't just some minor detail or a gray area for debate. This was a blatant misrepresentation to the court about what the DOJ was up to in New Jersey. Judge Matthew Brand didn't hold back at all. He wrote a whopping 130-page ruling calling out Bondi's team for their missteps and their overreach. He went even further, disqualifying all three prosecutors that Bondi had put in place without bothering to get Senate approval. And here's the kicker. The judge made it clear that what Bondi did could send ripples through the legal system. We're talking hundreds of criminal cases now sitting on shaky legal ground. Not just a few isolated instances. It's a situation that could collapse a whole lot of prosecutions, which is honestly hard to believe when you think about it. The survivors of these awful crimes deserve so much better from the Department of Justice, especially considering they didn't even redact the names of Epstein's victims while protecting the identities of their abusers. It's about time they took responsibility and apologized to the survivors who've been waiting behind them. The states decided that the rules simply didn't apply to her. I mean, seriously, it's pretty outrageous. And we haven't even touched on the fact that just days ago, the House Oversight issued a subpoena to Pam Bondi about the Epstein files. We're diving into every detail of that in just a moment. But let's take a second to be real here. Trusting mainstream media is a bit of a tricky situation these days. That's exactly why we created Pump Politics, to deliver genuine stories without the corporate fluff. If you want to keep up with the latest news, why not join our free newsletter? We'll send all the updates straight to your inbox. Just click that link in the description. Plus, if you're interested in what we're doing and want to support us, come join our community that truly values the truth. Now, back to the matter at hand. So back to the testimony. Of course, it's all about you being there to testify. Attorney General Bondi, does a convicted sex offender like Ghislaine Maxwell deserve any special treatment or perks while in prison? Just a simple yes or no would do. To make it really clear, no. And let me elaborate a little more on that. Apparently, Bondi didn't even know she was transferred. And when someone asked about it previously, she had denied that transfer to a lower security prison. I mean, the chair had to pause things and remind her of the rules. Pretty clear-cut stuff here. It's important to note, every time she gets these perks, it's been reported that the survivors she abused see it as a denial of justice for themselves. Now, what makes this whole situation really hit hard is that it's not just another ruling against the Trump administration. There have been plenty of those already. Courts have been challenging this administration on various fronts since he began his second term, but this ruling stands out. It goes beyond just saying that the Department of Justice misinterpreted the law. It accuses them of outright lying about their actions and motives. Judge Brand actually used the term misrepresentations, and in the legal world, that's about as serious as it gets. It's honestly hard to believe that Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, is in this situation, especially considering her role as the main law enforcer in the country. Her legal team stood before a federal judge and tried to argue about the legality of a prosecutor scheme that the judge deemed not just dishonest, but fundamentally so. This isn't just a loss in court, it's a major embarrassment. The irony of the chief guardian of honesty in our justice system getting caught lying about a scheme to put in unconfirmed loyalist prosecutors is quite striking. Now, this should be front-page news, right? We're looking at one of the most damaging hits to the credibility of the Department of Justice in recent history. Let's take a moment to unpack this, though, because Understanding the full context is really key to grasping just how significant this ruling is. Pam Bondi has been working for Trump since the beginning of his second term, and what we've witnessed is her job essentially being to reshape the DOJ to follow Trump's political agenda. This has meant firing prosecutors involved in cases against Trump and his inner circle, and quickly placing loyalists in key prosecutorial roles across the country. The goal has been to ensure that Trump's promised retribution agenda is implemented swiftly enough before the political window closes. New Jersey turned out to be a crucial battlefield for this agenda, thanks to its history of high-profile federal prosecutions and its importance in the Northeast. Bondi didn't hold back in her attempts to gain control over that office. Her first try ended in failure when her chosen candidate was completely ousted. The second attempt, called the Triumvirate Scheme, involved putting in 3 DOJ lawyers at once to run the office together and sidestep the single confirmed attorney structure that is legally required. This bold move was just shot down in a detailed ruling of 130 pages, which pointed directly at her team for their dishonesty. So here's the scoop on the situation with Pam Bondi, and let me tell you, it's not exactly calm waters. House oversight is demanding she get up and testify about the blocked Epstein files, while everything around her is unraveling. This isn't just another day at the office for her. It's like a 5-alarm fire with smoke billowing in all directions. Let's dig into this because every layer of this story is more crucial than the last, and you really need to grasp the whole thing to see what's going down right now. Starting with the lie is key, since that's what makes this ruling stand out from every other legal challenge faced by this administration, making it especially harmful. Judge Brand didn't just declare that Bondi's appointment scheme was illegal and call it a day. No, he specifically highlighted that the Department of Justice's legal team misrepresented their arguments when defending that scheme in court. Just think about what that means in practice for a moment. Bondi's lawyers actually stood in front of a federal judge, making their case with straight faces about why it was totally fine to have 3 unconfirmed DOJ lawyers running a U.S. attorney's office without Senate approval. They insisted it was all legal and within the Attorney General's rights. But Judge Brand went through everything in a ruling that spanned 130 pages and found that those arguments didn't accurately reflect the law, the facts, or the constitutional framework dictating how those appointments should happen. He called it overreach and noted that the scheme entirely dodged congressional oversight. What's more, his findings about misrepresentation imply he believed the DOJ wasn't just wrong legally, they were less than honest with the court about what they were doing and why. That's a pretty serious and lasting conclusion. It's the type of judgment that will follow a law enforcement agency for years, affecting how every future court perceives its arguments. Plus, you can bet defense attorneys in countless criminal cases will be referencing this ruling in motions from now until this entire legal saga winds its way through the appeals system. Now, we should dive into the details of the Triumvirate Scheme because it's genuinely important to understand just how bold this all really is. From the get-go, this whole arrangement was a bit of a legal mess. It all kicked off when Pam Bondi first tried to put a loyal supporter in charge of New Jersey's U.S. Attorney's Office. When that fell apart, instead of sticking to the usual Senate confirmation process, which is what the law requires, she decided to go a completely different route. Rather than finding someone who could actually make it through the confirmation hearing, she cooked up a new plan. She took 3 lawyers from the Department of Justice and appointed them to run the New Jersey office together, sharing the responsibilities and authority, which really had no legal precedent. It was one of those ideas that just didn't have a solid footing in law. The thinking behind this scheme seemed to be that by splitting the leadership among 3 people instead of having a single confirmed U.S. attorney, she could dodge the confirmation requirement entirely. But Judge Brand took a good hard look at that idea and flat out shot it down. He determined that this arrangement went over the legal limits set for Bondi and essentially sidestepped the oversight that Senate confirmation provides. What's more, he found that the DOJ's defense of this setup in court was full of misrepresentations regarding its legal basis. In a 130-page federal ruling, this whole saga has been laid out as an illegal power grab built on a shaky legal argument. And Bondi is responsible for every bit of that ruling because every decision leading to it was hers. Now let's dive into the real kicker here, which should infuriate everyone in America, no matter their political views. Judge Brand didn't just disqualify those 3 prosecutors and call it a day. He issued a serious warning that hundreds of criminal cases might fall apart because of the chaos and illegitimacy Bondi's scheme caused in that office. Think about the implications of that. Hundreds of cases at risk, which directly affects the communities that those prosecutions were set to protect. Every single case that got tangled up in this is a serious concern for real people out there. So it turns out that all these cases handled by 3 prosecutors who were not legally appointed are now facing a pretty serious legal challenge. We're talking about every drug trafficking case, organized crime prosecution, public corruption investigation, and financial fraud case that went through that office while those 3 were in charge without any real authority. At this very moment, defense attorneys throughout New Jersey are meticulously combing through their files, hunting for any angle to contest these cases based on the questionable legality of those prosecutors involved. Some of those challenges are bound to succeed, leading to case dismissals or overturned convictions. Interestingly, it won't be because the defendants didn't commit the crimes they were accused of. It's because the Attorney General set up this illegal appointment scheme and then lied about it in court, only to be caught red-handed. The real price of what Bondi did falls not on the lawyers in fancy suits in Washington, but on the local communities in New Jersey that those prosecutions aim to protect in the first place. And as for Trump's response to all of this, it was exactly what you might expect. He took to Truth Social to express his outrage over the ruling, completely dismissing it. It's clear they have no intention of changing course, admitting any wrongdoing, or taking responsibility for what Bondi did. There's not a hint of recognition for the hundreds of criminal cases now hanging by a thread, or any accountability regarding the illegal appointment scheme and the lies told to a federal court. It's just pure defiance and a knee-jerk reaction, reflecting how this administration seems to only respond with dismissal when things don't go their way. This inability to acknowledge or correct itself in light of judicial accountability is a key part of the narrative. It clearly shows that this ruling won't spark any real change. Things are really heating up with the Department of Justice. They're not backing down anytime soon. They plan to appeal and keep looking for fresh angles in their legal strategies. It's like they're on a relentless hunt for any workaround that might just stick, until the courts shut them down completely, or they somehow stumble upon a winning argument. The legal mess is only going to get more chaotic. This turmoil isn't just in New Jersey. It's spreading to 5 other states that are dealing with nearly identical issues. Now let's talk about the Epstein connection. This part really ties everything together and shows what's happening in Pam Bondi's Department of Justice. Just days before Judge Brand issued a crucial ruling, the House Oversight Committee hit Pam Bondi with a formal subpoena. They're demanding real answers about why the DOJ has been blocking access to documents related to the Epstein case. Many people across the political spectrum feel these documents should have been released to the public ages ago. Bondi has been dodging these demands without seeming to care about the political fallout. The committee finally lost its patience and issued a subpoena that she can't just brush off. And now she has that subpoena hanging over her head right alongside a 130-page court ruling that says her DOJ misled a federal judge about an illegal prosecution scheme. Here's the situation. She's not just fighting a federal court ruling, she's also juggling a congressional subpoena pushing her to testify about the obstruction of Epstein documents. On top of that, she's facing the fallout from potentially collapsing criminal cases, all while Trump is stirring the pot on Truth Social, making the political atmosphere even worse with every post. The picture being painted right now isn't one of a solid and transparent law enforcement agency. Instead, it looks like an attorney general who's struggling to keep afloat across multiple legal and political battles at once. Her whole approach of prioritizing loyalty over basic legal procedures is really starting to bite back. Things have really spun out of control for Pam Bondi, and it's fascinating to see how everything connects back to a larger story of retribution. This isn't just about her actions, it's part of a bigger picture that stretches across the entire Department of Justice. Right from the start, the current administration has been reshaping the DOJ with a clear and specific political agenda. When Trump returned to office, he made a lot of noise about wanting to clean house at the Justice Department. And he wasn't kidding. He systematically pushed out prosecutors who had worked on cases against him or his allies, replacing them with new people chosen largely for their personal loyalty rather than their legal skills or experience. It was a clear signal from the White House. The DOJ would prioritize the president's political needs over the law. New Jersey, with its history of high-profile federal prosecutions involving powerful figures and major crimes, became a prime target for this agenda. Bondi was relentless in her quest to install someone loyal in that office, but her tactics were reckless. This ultimately led her in front of a federal judge who determined that her team had lied about the legal basis for the Holit scheme. The retribution agenda relied on a specific approach that led to these misrepresentations, which then resulted in a lengthy ruling. That ruling is now creating ripples, potentially collapsing numerous criminal cases and sparking a congressional subpoena, along with a political and legal storm that's sure to keep heating up for quite some time. This is the inevitable outcome of prioritizing loyalty over legality each time it's pushed too far. Now, let's sift through everything to highlight what really matters moving forward, the real consequences, the stakes involved, and what's next for everyone caught in this rapidly escalating legal and political mess. I'm going to break it down point by point, ensuring we touch on everything. The finding of misrepresentation has made a serious impact, one that a lot of people covering this story don't fully grasp right now. The implications for the Department of Justice's credibility are not just significant. They're going to last a long time and reach far beyond this single case. When a federal judge publicly states that the government's lawyers lied to the court, that kind of announcement doesn't just stay confined to that case. It spreads through the legal system. Other lawyers will reference it in different cases, and it becomes a permanent part of the legal record that judges and opposing counsel will consider when assessing future arguments from that same institution. Now, with Bondi at the helm, the DOJ has this troubling finding officially recorded in one of the biggest and most visible appointment disputes of the entire second term. Going forward, every time DOJ lawyers step into federal court in New Jersey or even in courts across the nation, the opposing counsel will know about this finding and make sure to use it to their advantage. Judges will remember it too, influencing how they view the credibility of DOJ arguments on sensitive issues. The damage to the institution is very real, and it builds up over time in ways that a single adverse ruling on legal issues wouldn't. Sure, it's possible to bounce back from being wrong about the law. Courts get overturned on legal matters all the time. But hitting a wall when formally accused of misrepresenting the law to a federal court while trying to defend an illegal power grab, that's a tough one to recover from. And Bondi, as the head of the institution, owns that finding completely. There's no one else to blame. Then there's point two. The hundreds of cases that might be affected is not just some abstract concept. It needs to be taken seriously, as the judge's formal warning demands. Judge Brand didn't hold back. He made it clear that hundreds of criminal cases could collapse because of the instability and legal issues that Bondi's scheme brought into that office. This is a sitting federal judge giving a serious official warning that the fallout from Bondi's illegal appointment scheme could lead to the dismissal of numerous federal prosecutions. Defense attorneys aren't going to let that warning go by without acting. They're gearing up to dive right into it, attacking every single case involving those 3 illegally appointed prosecutors. Each conviction will get picked apart from all angles, with challenges filed through every legal route available. It looks like the federal legal system in New Jersey will be dealing with the repercussions of Pam Bondi's actions for a long time. Years, not just months. The folks who might benefit from these potential dismissals and overturned convictions aren't likely to be people we'd want back on the streets. We're talking drug traffickers, organized crime leaders, violent offenders, and financial fraudsters. Their defense attorneys will have a strong case to argue, pointing directly at what Pam Bondi decided to do and justifying to the judge why their clients deserve relief. That's the lasting legacy of this whole scheme, loyalty over legality, playing out in the real world with full force. Then there's the Epstein subpoena that lands right on the heels of this ruling, which adds another layer of legal and political trouble for Bondi. This situation is really something else, a mix that feels unprecedented for an attorney general in recent memories. She's caught in the thick of defending against a federal court ruling that says her Department of Justice misled a judge, handling a formal congressional subpoena that demands she testify under oath regarding her actions around Epstein documents and navigating the fallout from potentially hundreds of failing criminal cases across New Jersey. All of this unfolds in a political climate where Democrats are ramped up for oversight, and Republican moderates are starting to get anxious about how things look when an attorney general keeps losing in court while holding back documents from Congress. The Epstein situation is particularly thorny politically because it crosses party lines, unlike most controversies the Department of Justice faces. The call for full transparency on the Epstein files is growing louder. It's honestly hard to believe how things are unfolding for Pam Bondi and the Department of Justice. You see, there's this rare moment where both Trump supporters and opponents are coming together, united in their demand for accountability. When you throw in a federal court finding of misrepresentation alongside a formal congressional subpoena regarding document obstruction, the shape of the narrative is pretty clear. What's being revealed is nothing short of troubling. An attorney general who not only lies to federal courts, but also conceals documents from Congress. That's a tough story for any Republican in a competitive district, and it's one they certainly don't want hanging around their campaign. The stark image of Bondi's actions is a gift to Democrats, delivered free of charge by our own choices and behavior. Now, as we look at the implications of this situation for the midterms, it couldn't be worse for the Republican Party. The 2026 midterms are closing in quickly, and the political atmosphere is already quite unstable. Democrats have been weaving a consistent narrative during Trump's second term, casting the DOJ as a tool for personal loyalty and revenge rather than a lawful entity. And with a federal judge's extensive ruling, over 130 pages long, revealing misrepresentations and illegal overreach, while also warning of potentially collapsing criminal cases, the narrative Democrats are working with isn't something they have to piece together. Bondi has practically constructed this narrative for them, bit by bit, through her own actions over months of assertive management at the DOJ. Independent voters who really care about the integrity of our institutions and upholding the rule of law are now witnessing an attorney general getting called out for lying to a federal court while simultaneously dodging Congress on Epstein documents. That scenario is particularly dangerous in a midterm cycle where every close race hinges on the opinions of persuadable voters. It's a genuinely toxic situation for the Republican Party. The situation with Pam Bondi in New Jersey was pretty intense. She stepped in with a strong and determined agenda, aiming to place her loyal followers in the U.S. Attorney's Office as quickly as she could. Legal processes didn't seem to matter at all to her. She seemed ready to deal with any consequences later. This was her strategy, and she tried it not once, but twice. Both times? It was a spectacular failure. The second time around, it got even worse when a federal judge publicly called out her legal team for lying in court about the whole debacle. They documented everything. There were 130 pages detailing the misrepresentation. Now, hundreds of criminal cases are hanging in the balance, and things aren't looking good. On top of all this, there's a formal congressional subpoena concerning the obstruction of Epstein documents. Meanwhile, Trump was busy commenting on Truth Social, completely ignoring the real-life consequences this administration's obsession with loyalty has on crucial prosecutions of dangerous criminals. It turns out that when the courts push back against this kind of corruption, the truth comes to light, and it's not a pretty picture. This weaponized Department of Justice doesn't come off as strong or winning. Rather, it looks like it's become so focused on political loyalty that it's lost sight of its basic legal responsibilities. And now, a federal judge has put all of that into a ruling that anyone can read and refer to. This ruling isn't going anywhere, nor is the subpoena, or the hundreds of cases at risk, or the 5 other states facing similar issues. Plus, the political fallout heading into 2026 is definitely not going away either. So keep an eye out. The next chapter in this saga is bound to hit even harder than what we just witnessed in New Jersey. When it does, I'll be right here to break it all down piece by piece.